All right, folks, once again, I am very excited about our next speaker. So what we have is, once again, we are leveraging the magic of virtual training. We have, once again, all the way from Africa, we have Janet. She's going to present her perspective on some of the unique challenges they're facing over there, to include social engineering, cybercrime, and how they're handling it. So Janet, we're very excited to have you. The virtual floor is yours.
My talk today is going to be about the human firewall, a multifaceted approach to combating social engineering. I'll give you some perspectives from Kenya, where I work from, and I believe you can be able to apply some of them in your environment. So a little bit about myself. My full names are Janet Maranga Wesonga. I currently work as the CISO at the University of Nairobi in Kenya. Kenya is a country in the east of Africa. These are some of my credentials. So my goal today, I'm going to inform you how social engineering works, try to persuade you that user education by itself does not address the social engineering tactics that are used by the social engineers, and then try also to persuade you on some of the best practices that you can institutionalize. So I'll take you a little bit through. Alison, kindly assist me.
Sure thing. Go to the next slide, please.
All right. Back on the life cycle. Yes, thank you, great. So we frequently hear about cyber attacks on organizations using highly technical and sophisticated means. But what we never get to hear is how the attackers actually got to get in. So social engineering basically involves gaining the trust of unsuspecting users using manipulation or trickery in order to gain some unauthorized system access and credentials and eventually commit fraud or impersonation. So why does this actually matter? These social engineering attacks are more common than we might actually think, and the odds that you're going to encounter one yourself are actually pretty high. And they could actually range from a minor inconvenience where you just have to change your password and you fix the problem, all the way to a fraud which involves draining your bank account. So social engineering, just like the other fields like risk and software development, also follow a sort of life cycle. So in the simplest form, it follows the life cycle of research, hook, extract, and exit. So it's no different. And in the research phase, this is where the attacker does the recon. They try to collect some sort of background information on their target, and then they determine the target's weakness. And then after that, they're going to identify what's the easiest vector of attack. So they can either focus on a vector such as in person or using the phone, or they can focus on a pretext or a story approach. And then the next phase is on the hook. This is where now they are trying to draw the target in. So they try to create a believable story or a promise, and then they try to build a relationship with their target. And during this hook, they are spinning a web of lies, basically trying to establish control of the relationship with their targets. Then the next phase is on extract. This is where they try to strengthen the relationship with their target. They try to seem believable, they leverage control of the relationship, and now they're basically in charge. And then during that phase, they also now obtain whatever information they had targeted to get from their victim. And then after that, they'll basically exit. This is where that's the end of the life cycle. They will attempt to remove all the traces of their presence and basically keep the lessons learned from that attack cycle so that they can use it in their future attacks. All right, next slide, please. So now next I'm going to take you through some human vulnerabilities. So how do these social engineering attacks actually work? So you find that humans also have vulnerabilities, just like servers and workstations have vulnerabilities. Humans also have some vulnerabilities, and the social engineers have actually learned about this, and they actually leverage on this, and they want to take advantage of these psychological traits that are inherently in the humans. Next. So the first vulnerability is reciprocity. So we are generally vulnerable to reciprocity. Generally, if I scratch your back, you will scratch mine mentality. So for example, if I give you some information about a certain interview I was taking, then you'll feel inclined to give me a little bit of information. So people generally tend to return a favor. For example, if an attacker in some way seems generous or thoughtful, the victim may actually feel compelled to provide some special access or otherwise bend some critical rules that they could not ordinarily break. Next. The next one is commitment. Commitment is another behavioral trait that is inherent in human beings. For example, when someone commits either orally or in writing, they become more willing to honor that commitment because they take it as a personal responsibility to fulfill. For example, on auction sites, why is it that once you start bidding for an item, you keep bidding higher and higher, and you find that you've probably gone up to a price than the initial one you had set for yourself, that you are not going to bid higher than that price? It's because you've become committed to that process. And another example is, for example, you're talking to a person, and for the life of you, you're supposed to know the name of this person, but you cannot remember it because probably you didn't even ask for it in the first place. So you go on and on and on in that conversation, and you find that over time, maybe 2 hours later, the person starts asking some sensitive information. You're not going to turn around and ask that person for their ID, to see their ID, because no one wants to admit that they've spent 2 hours talking to a stranger, basically, and you'll find that somehow you're committed to that particular conversation, and it's going to be much easier for you to give some information that you normally will not be able to. Yes, the next is familiarity. People generally feel comfortable with who and what they know. So the social engineers have known that, and they leverage on that. For example, when you share certain details with a stranger, then you feel inclined to share more and more. Say they'll start up a conversation, and then maybe you find that you've lived in similar cities, or you've gone to similar schools, or probably you have children of the same age, then you feel like there's a sense of familiarity with that person. So even the concept, your level of alertness basically goes down because you feel like this person is very familiar. So that actually encourages you to share more than you would be willing to share with a stranger. Next. Yeah, the next is scarcity. So this one is a favorite with the people who answer the phone. So the attackers know this. So they'll try to pressure you into giving information. They'll tell you you only have 5 minutes to have this particular item at this price. So you have to give this information, for example. So you'll feel pressured, or probably you're in the middle of a busy work day and you get a phone call. You definitely want to get over it quick so that you get back to your work. There's some pending work you need to finish. So the element of scarcity comes in. So you find that you're more inclined to give sensitive information that you will normally not do. This works also with things where there are limited qualities, limited quantities, or where there's this sort of a countdown timer on a certain deal, be it Black Friday, Cyber Monday, these types of things. So they bring in the element of scarcity. And yesterday, Richard Tobak showed some of these persuasion skills in action. And social engineers actually have known, and they leverage on this. So in your awareness trainings, it's important that you also make your audience aware, your staff, your employees, or whatever your target audience, so that they are aware of these weaknesses. Because you find that you tend to start from the technological point of view. You do not go down to the psychological point of view. So this is how the scarcity works. Next, please. Alison. Yes, thank you. Authority. Now, many people have grown to respect authority, and the authority could either be legal authority, it could be organizational authority, it could be social authority, but all this is still authority, and many people have come to respect that. So authority is going to persuade you to do things that you otherwise will not do. So the same applies to your employees or the people in your organizations. If maybe they see an email that is seemingly coming from the CEO or someone of high authority, and maybe they are required to perform a certain transaction, because of that authority, they are going to do it. Or if, for example, they receive a phone call and the person on the other side of the line seems authoritative, they seem to know what they're saying, then that person is more likely to fall prey to such a social engineering attack. Next. So user education in and of itself, does not change human nature. These traits are inborn, and really they cannot go away because they are inherent human weaknesses. They are psychological traits that we cannot really wish away. So I would like to persuade you that in and of itself, user education, it is good. The awareness is good and all these training sessions, but in itself, it does not change our human nature. So how far really can the user education go to bridge this gap of the human vulnerabilities that we just talked about? And how can we be able to help our users? So what strategies can you use to prevent some of these social engineering attacks from being successful? So you can have your technical controls, and you can also have your non-technical controls. So user education cannot cover every case, because the methods which are being used to conduct social engineering change every day. And then it does not solve the reciprocity that we just talked about. It does not solve trust. Neither does it solve familiarity, scarcity, authority, and all these other human vulnerabilities. And then research has been shown to show that it fades after about 6 months. So for example, if you did user awareness in January of this year, by around June there, the users have forgotten, because most of the users are probably not day-to-day IT people. So probably someone is working in finance, or they are working in HR or some other department. It is not top of their mind. They are busy with their line of work. So your user education is going to fade after about 6 months. So unless you conduct or become more creative in how you conduct the user education, then it's not going to be very useful in and of itself. Then it also treats each situation with context. So you may find that probably in January, the attacks that were being launched are different than the ones which now have been brought to the fore by the global pandemic that's ongoing. The social engineers change their tactics very fast. So you also have to find a way to come up with a way that works, so that you're able to cover all the bases, basically. Next. So what are some of the typical types of attacks that users fall prey to? Phishing. I won't belabor the point. It's just where information which you give out information unsuspectingly to a fraudulent person. Next. In phishing, this is basically voice solicitation, where the phone is used to extract information or data points that can be used in a later attack. Then we have smishing. This is basically phishing using SMSs. So for example, you get an SMS which may not be legitimate and it may have links inside which you're required to click, but the notifications are not actually from where they're coming from. You're actually being phished. Next. Passwords, this is where now your passwords are harvested and unknowingly, definitely, and it is another vector of attack. So pretexting, this attack uses a pretext to gain your attention and hook your subject into providing information. For example, an internet survey can start off looking pretty harmless, asking general questions, and then towards the end, it asks for sensitive information, like, for example, your bank account details, and promising that probably at the end of it, you're going to be entered into a lucky draw or be given some gift or other, or someone with a clipboard, for example, can turn up on your premises and purport to be from internal audit and say they are conducting an audit of your systems, and they may be out to steal valuable data from you. Contact spamming and email hacking. This is where maybe it looks like your contact is sending the email, but probably they have been hacked. Your contact has been hacked, and now their whole all their contacts have been sent to spam emails, and some of them may fall for them, and that is the main aim of the attackers. And this is basically what this is about, or where a friend forwards a must-see video and links to malware or key logging Trojan. Then in quid pro quo, here they say that a fair exchange is no robbery, but in this case, actually it is robbery, because you think that you're giving some information, so the attacker makes the victim believe that they're going to get some information in return, or some reward in return for the information they give. For example, you may be asked to fill a survey, and at the end of the survey, you're going to receive maybe a coupon to a certain store, or a gift card, or some other reward. So this promises the user that maybe another good example could be scareware, where now you sent a certain form of software pretends that this is an update to your machine and you need to update it immediately because you're at high risk of being attacked. Yet it is actually the malicious software, and once you install it on your machine, you're basically infected. So we've seen all these different types of attacks and the life cycle. So how best can you warn your users, for example, during your awareness sessions? How best can you warn them how to be able to reduce their attack surface, basically, in all these stages of the social engineering, or how can they be aware? In the first one is the digital footprint, where you ask them to limit their oversharing. For example, if it's LinkedIn, do not fill out everything. Don't put out all the vendors you're working with. Don't put specifics of all the software you're supporting in your company, because this basically just gives the attackers a leverage of to know specific details about your company. And if they call in or they try to get into your people, then they have very specific information, such that it's very difficult to tell what's true from what's not. Next. Then in another mitigation you can use on the second level of the life cycle, the hook level, what can you do to be able to stop some of the attacks? Fine, the research has been conducted. Now on the life cycle, we are at the hook stage. So how can you train your users to be able to not to fall prey to some of these tactics? Next. You have to train your users to be alert, to be in the moment, to be present. Whenever maybe they receive a call, or probably they are somewhere and someone is asking for some information, they need to be aware. Right now we are doing a lot of multitasking. you're basically turning to many things at the same time. So you may find that your level of alertness goes down, or maybe you're fatigued because you're working from home, you're working long hours because there's no commute, so everything is centralized. So you need to be alert so that when you pick up that call, you're sure you can stop everything else, listen to the call, then after that, now you can be able to determine the next course of action. That way, you won't be able to fall prey to some of these attacks. Next. So you need to have some level of skepticism. So whenever you get any form of someone asking for information, you need to be very skeptical. Do not give offers from strangers the benefit of doubt. If they seem too good to be true, they probably are. Do not be over enthusiastic about having won the lottery or your number or email having been picked for a prize, a certain prize. Be skeptical, investigate, then if it's true, well and good. If not, you have saved yourself a lot of pain down the road. Next. Next. So you need to trust, but again, go the extra step and verify. You need to verify any information you receive. Also train your users to do the same. Trust, but verify. Next. So on the extract level, now maybe the first two steps have been successful. What can you do to be able to prevent this step from being successful? Next. Passwords. I would highly recommend that you use a password management tool and advise your users the same. I know there are two schools of thoughts here where maybe one say password managers are not good because it's like putting all your eggs in one basket. But I would highly recommend having them because it enables your users to be free from being bogged down by passwords. You're saying have strong passwords, have this number of characters. If, for example, you are using a password manager and you are social engineered, for the life of you, you will not be able to immediately on the phone give out your password because you do not know it. And assuming you went to checked on have I been pwned, and maybe you found that your email has been involved in some couple of data breaches, all you do is go and change your passwords, feed the password manager, and it will generate another 20 character string, long password for you, strong password, and you're good to go. So some good examples of password managers, there's KeePass, there's NPass, LastPass, Bitwarden. So you can do your research and find what actually works for you. Next. You can also do your due diligence. Here you do not jump to conclusions. Whenever you receive any form of correspondence, check. The security awareness courses should actually be targeted to employees and job functions. So this will give them sensitivity to these cyber scam attacks. For example, email correspondences can be tailored to have a logo that very well looks like your company logo, and the email address can be tailored to look like it's coming from the CEO. So you have to have your users know that they have to do due diligence. They should not be quick to hit on reply and give out sensitive information. Next.
Janet, just real
Yes.
quick, and I am so sorry, just to let you know we have about 5 minutes left.
Sure. I'll be real quick. So
No.
basics, okay. So basic security hygiene, here, this is where you train your users not to click on links and to be very fast to basically just check on what they're clicking online. Next. On the exit level, next. Next. Ask your users to call back any numbers that they do not know and be able to, so that they can verify by themselves, not to just give out information, research on that particular number and then they call them back. That way they avoid falling prey and giving out information. Next. At the corporate level, how can you assist your users? Next. You can have email tags where now you can tell your users that this particular email originates from outside your organization. So if it's not in your domain, they can immediately see that and know that this is not coming from their domain. Next. Have spam filters. This way you're helping your users because not all the spam is coming in. Set the spam filter levels as appropriate. Next. Conduct phishing simulations. A lot of the speakers before me have talked about this, so I'm sure you're spoiled for choice on the type of phishing simulations you can do. Next. Limit privileged access to data and use multiple sources of authentication. Next. Then carry out regular cybersecurity posture assessments of your environment. As you know, a lot of these things, there are security gaps. You find out your security gaps and then find where are you in your maturity level. What's your maturity level? Cyber criminals have really improved their ways to improve their chances of success. So they have updated and modified their social engineering tactics as the times change. Technologies such as deepfakes, which leverage on artificial intelligence, have come, and they are able to manipulate the voice or face. And now the techniques are actually becoming more and more sophisticated. So when you do your cybersecurity posture assessment, you'll be able to know where you're at and be able to bridge the gaps before the bad guys come in and get you. And finally, next, Alison. We've covered some measures that can help you mitigate some attempts to trick and cajole you or your staff into revealing sensitive data. None of them stands alone, they complement each other. Then protecting against them is a process. And then when the human element of behavior manipulation is added, using social engineering, the process can have many moving parts. So you have to focus on human-centric security as well as a good combination of technological approaches so that you are able to help your users. So a multifaceted social technological approach is required to be able to successfully combat against these social engineering attacks. And then if you institutionalize that, then you have gone a long way into preventing these social engineering attacks. Thank you. That was all I intended to cover.